Welcome back. I am Kaikasi, Assistant Professor of English, University College Trivandrum, and this is the second part of the lecture series on the topic Indian aesthetics with special reference to Rasa. In the last video, I gave you a brief introduction to the concept of aesthetics with special reference to Indian aesthetics. We discussed the 8 schools of poetry. We also discussed and we concluded with the statement that the entire tradition of Indian aesthetics is built upon the foundation of a concept called Rasa, and Rasa is a concept which was introduced for the first time in a text called Natya Shastra. And in this video, we will be discussing what are the concepts of Rasa and the origin of the term Rasa and how Natya Shastra came into being and why is it considered to be the greatest text on Indian aesthetics and drama in general. In order to understand more on Natya Shastra, we have to first understand why it was written. What was the reason behind the composition of Natya Shastra as a text? We also have to understand what was happening before Natya Shastra and which were the texts which were considered to be the cornerstones of Indian theory before that. And they are the 4 Vedas. We all know that Vedas are 4 in number. We also know that Indian theories owes its tradition to 2 kinds of text. One is the Smriti, which has to be remembered, and there is Shruti, which has to be heard. So, we have Shrutis and Smritis. Vedas are Shrutis, which has to be heard and memorized. Now, Vedas are 4 in number. The oldest Veda is Rig Veda, and it is a treatise which consists of 1028 hymns, and it actually deals with every form of knowledge that was prevalent at that point of time in India. I use these terms with lot of caution because there are people who argue that does your Rig Veda has all these in that, does the Rig Veda talk about gravitational force and so on. No, that is why I stressed on the term Rig Veda deals with all the knowledge systems that was prevalent in India at that point of time in history. So, that is Rig Veda, which is a great treatise, Brihad Grantham ennu namukku parayam. So, that is Rig Veda for you. So, the second Veda is Sama Veda, which is actually hymns in Rig Veda set to music. You know that the earlier textbooks in India or in any part of the world follows a musical composition. The reason behind making it musical is that you have to remember it. Remember, this is something which has to be heard. So, people will have to memorize it using continuous repetition, and there is nothing more beautiful than remembering something in the form of a musical composition. That is why you have Sama Veda, which is actually hymns in Rig Veda set to music. And now we have the third Veda, which is the Yajur Veda. Now, Yajur Veda is also a set of prose mantras. See, all these the Vedas, which is actually from the root word vid, to know. Now, this is actually dealing with prose mantras, basically dealing with religious practices also. So, it is actually a set of prose mantras. And finally, we have Atharva Veda, which is a text that is almost dark in nature if you were to go by the recent terminology. It is a text that deals with magical formula, with treatment of various illness, black magic, superstitions and so on, and that is Atharva Veda for you. So, we have Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. These are the 4 Vedas. And who had access to all this? Now, that is a very crucial and pertinent question. These Vedas were accessible only to the priestly class or those people who were well versed in Sanskrit language, which is a classical language, which was accessible only to those people who could afford them, who was given a chance to learn them. And commoners, common people, they had no access to these 4 Vedas and they were blissfully ignorant of what was the content in these texts. It was at this time that Brahma was the creator of the universe according to Hindu mythology, he started having second thoughts about having a text which will be appealing to common people, which will be appealing to the layman without having any problem to read and write. Therefore, they had plans of making another Veda, and that Veda came to be known as Panchama Veda. You find in some references Mahabharata being referred to as Panchama Veda, which is again these are all different viewpoints that are here. Anyway, Brahma decided to have something called a Panchama Veda, and in order to have a Panchama Veda, he actually asked Bharata Muni as we call him, Bharata to create a Panchama Veda, and that was the beginning of Natya Shastra. So, Bharata was approached by Brahma, the creator, and he was asked to compose the Panchama Veda for the common man, and that was the beginning of, I think I told you, Natya Shastra. And this was composed around 200 BCE, and Natya Shastra is a text which comprises of 6000 slokas. Now, ancient text has got slokas. Slokas are verses, and it contained 6000 slokas. And Bharata did not invent anything. He did not actually create a Panchama Veda. No, he did not do that. He did actually a very simple task of taking concepts from the 4 Vedas. So, what did he do? He actually took a portion from Rig Veda, a portion from Yajur Veda, a portion from Sama Veda, and a portion from Atharva Veda, and constituted what is known as the Panchama Veda, which is another name for Natya Shastra. So, what he did was, he took Patya from Rig Veda. Patya is another name for text. So, the text for Panchama Veda was taken from Rig Veda, the text form. So, you have verses taken from Rig Veda. So, that is a contribution of Rig Veda in Natya Shastra. So, the text was taken from Rig Veda. And from Sama Veda, he took songs. In Natya Shastra, you find a number of songs which has made it to the history of all dance tradition, and some of these songs are directly taken from Sama Veda. And from Yajur Veda, he took the concept of Abhinaya. And from Yajur Veda, the concept of Abhinaya was taken. Abhinaya, acting, or the signs of expressing things to a spectator. Now, this is again very, very crucial, because Natya Shastra is a text that deals with dramatics, how an actor emotes on the stage and how that emotion is transferred from the actor to the audience, the members of the audience who are engrossed in that performance, which we later call it as the Sahridaya. Now, Abhinaya was taken from Yajur Veda, and finally, Rasa, the concept of Rasa or the aesthetic experience, was taken from Atharva Veda. Rasa, the aesthetic experience that we get when we are watching a performance, when we are reading a poem, when we are watching a painting, this was actually taken from Atharva Veda. So, all the 4 Vedas have some contribution or some role in the making of the Panchama Veda, which is called Natya Shastra. Yes. So, now I told you that Natya Shastra was composed in the year 200 BCE, and it is a treatise which consists of 6000 slokas, and it contains 36 chapters. So, 36 chapters, 2000 BC it was composed, 6000 slokas. Now, these are some dates which I want you to remember. So, 36 chapters is very crucial. And what does it deal with? It deals with every aspect of Abhinaya. It deals with every aspect of dramatics. So, when you find an actor playing a role, whether it is in a movie or a drama, or if it is a character in a novel or poem, what is so unique about getting interested in that character? Why do we have that close affinity to that character? All this is directly linked to Natya Shastra. Or if you are watching a dance performance, you don't have the dancer telling you everything. The dancer conveys those emotions through a set of mudras, right? Mudras, gestures, expressions, facial expressions. Now, you have Angika, Vachika and all that that follows later. So it is a combination of all this, and what happens to the person who is watching this has been explicated in this text called Natya Shastra. So when you cry, when you watch a character crying on the screen and you are also crying, there is nothing wrong in crying, because you are doing your duty as a Sahridaya, or the what you can call the very sensitive spectator. So in Natya Shastra we have a separate chapter for the concept of Sahridaya also. So this text deals with every aspect of dramatics. It actually begins with concepts like Renga Devada, Puja and so on. See, when you actually go to watch a Bharatanatyam performance, you find that the artist who is going to perform coming with a bunch of flowers in her hand and offering it to the Renga Devada, or the presiding deity of the stage, and she pays her respect to the stage and then starts dancing. Now why does she do that? Because it is actually mentioned in Natya Shastra that the artist is supposed to do that. And there is a separate chapter for what is the kind of costumes the character has to wear, or the dancer has to wear. Why is that some dance forms have a particular costume and some others have another one? Why is Mohiniyattam in a special way? Why is Bharatanatyam in a separate way? And why is Kathakali has a very unique dress code? All this owes its explanation to Natya Shastra, because you have a separate chapter on costumes. There is a separate chapter on where this has to be performed. There is concept called Natya Graha. Now you find artists performing everywhere. We have street plays and everywhere. We have democratized the whole thing. There is nothing called high art and low art and so on. But at one point of time this was completely a no. You can't perform anywhere. You need to have a separate place for performance, and you used to call it as Natya Graha. And the construction of Natya Graha also demanded a lot of attention, and this was again explained in a chapter. And expressions are in one chapter, mudras in another chapter, and so on. We are not concerned with all those things, because only a Bharatanatyam artist need to be worried about those things. We are only concerned about Rasa, and Bharata talks about Rasa in chapter 6 of Natya Shastra. Chapter 6 of Natya Shastra. And in chapter 7 you have Bhava, another important concept in acting. So the 6th chapter of Natya Shastra is Rasa. So now the text is ready, the Panchama Veda is ready with concepts taken from 4 other Vedas. We have 6000 slokas, we have 36 chapters, everything is ready. Now somebody has to teach all these things to the people interested. There should be a teacher, because it's not very easy to understand what is this text all about. So Bharata had a very interesting plan for that. He had 100 sons, and he actually sent these 100 sons to different parts of the world and asked them to do the simple task of propagating the concept of Rasa everywhere, not Rasa, Natya Shastra everywhere. That's one of the reasons why we find Natya Shastra as a text in different parts of the world. It's not just in India that we have Natya Shastra as the core text in Abhinaya. You find this is followed in many other countries. The reason is attributed to the 100 sons of Bharata, who was very, very loyal to their father, and they decided to spread the message of their father, and they spread the ideas propagated by Natya Shastra all across the world. So that is how Natya Shastra became a universal textbook of acting. So now that is clear. Now we move on to the concept of Rasa. As I told you earlier, that Bharata did not invent anything for his Panchama Veda. He actually took everything from the 4 Vedas. So the concept of Rasa is also not something that Bharata invented. He did not invent anything. The concept of Rasa is already mentioned in different Puranas and texts which were written in the past. Agni Purana talks about that, Tattreya Upanishad talks about that, and so on. So Rasa is already mentioned there, but Bharata gave a new version to the whole thing. He actually added a new dimension to the concept of Rasa. That is what he actually did. Now let us look at the meanings of the term Rasa. Now when I ask you something about did you like the movie, you will say nalla rasam undayirunnu ennu parayum, allengil aa bhakshanam engane undayirunnu adu nalla rasam undayirunnu ennu parayum. അതെനിക്ക് രസമായിട്ട് തോന്നിയില്ല എന്ന് പറയും. സോ you use the word rasa in different context, especially when you are talking about your likes and dislikes about a certain object or a performance or something like that. So rasa is one word that we use every day in different contexts, whether you are watching a performance, whether you are eating, whether you are attending a class, anything you use the word rasa. Now rasa at one point of time meant different things. It used to mean sap, it used to mean juice, water was once referred to as rasa. Then liquor, somarasam nakku parayum alcohol na, so that is liquor. Milk was once referred to as rasa. Nectar was referred to as rasa. Poison was referred to as rasa. മെർക്കുറിയുടെ മലയാളം പദം തന്നെയാണ് രസം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. Now mercury was referred to as rasa. Taste, I think I already mentioned, taste was referred to as rasa. Then relish, you eat something with great relish, you used to call that rasa. Then desire was referred to as rasa. Beauty was referred to as rasa. But now after a long period, all these meanings just got entwined in one term, that is the essence of something. So when I say rasa, it actually means the essence of something, the essence of poetry, the essence of movie and so on. So it actually stands for essence. So these are the possible meanings of rasa. And finally, now when we say rasa, it actually stands for the essence of something. So what is the essence of something that you are reading? What is the essence of something that you are watching? What is the essence of something that you are hearing? All this stands for rasa. Now Bharata just initiated the discussion of this. This was taken up by later theoreticians. There are a lot of people who actually took a lead from this, and you have they started coming up with their own explanations of the concept of rasa, which is again a very large topic which can't be dealt in a very short video lecture like this. So the beginning of rasa is the beginning of Indian aesthetic tradition, which was later explicated and enriched by Anandavardhana and Abhinavagupta. The whole thing is called the central tradition of Indian aesthetics. It's called the central tradition. So after Bharata, we have Rudrada, Bhamaga, Dandin, all of them explicated the concept of rasa. Now let me ask you a few questions. You're going to watch a movie. Your favorite hero is playing the titular character, and the character is about to die on the stage, on the screen, and you start crying. And you are crying and you really don't know why you are crying, but still you are crying, and the person who is sitting next to you might ask, why are you crying? What's the reason behind your tears? You know that the character is not dead, that actor is not dead. I found him talking about something else in the television even yesterday. You don't have to cry. You have to be very practical when you are watching all this. You shouldn't be like a small baby crying and so on. You have to say shut up to that person for two reasons. One, that's basically, why do you cry is actually an innate human emotion to cry when something happens to somebody who is very dear to you. It's a genuine human emotions. Boys as well as girls cry. Boys are always told that boys don't cry, and they are asked to be very reticent about their emotions, and girls, they cry and it is considered to be a sign of feminine weakness. No, it is not. You are crying because you are a sahridaya. And who is a sahridaya? Sahridaya is that person whose heart actually reaches a kind of same status with the person who is emoting on the stage or on the screen or on the page. You have reached that level where their emotions becomes your emotions also. You can appropriate those emotions. You can actually understand those emotions. You can actually go through those emotions in the same way that the character goes through. That is when you become a sahridaya. So the person who is sitting next to you is not a sahridaya because he is a very, very critical viewer. I'm not saying that you should never be a critical viewer. I'm talking about that level of mind where you can actually identify with the characters and their emotions on the stage. That is when you becomes a sahridaya. But what actually happens to you when you are crying? What happens to you when you are watching a romance on the screen? What happens when you are watching Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol in DDLJ? Why do you feel that kind of a strong emotion to see them united? That's basically because you are born with that. You are born with certain emotions. You are born with certain things which we call it as the Sthayi Bhavas. That is why you feel the pain when two star-crossed lovers die, or when somebody is in distress, somebody is going to die, somebody is in a hapless situation. That is why we have tears for refugees all across the world. That is why we have tears for war widows. That's basically because we are born with certain emotions, and this is what is addressed in this text called Natya Shastra. What actually happens to you when you are watching a piece of art? This is where we started, right? What happens to you? Because art moves you, it transforms you. There is something that happens to you when you are watching a performance, and that feeling is induced by certain factors which will be explained in the next video. So Bharadat said that what happens to you when you are watching a performance has got a theoretical foundation, and he called it as the Rasa Sutra, and Rasa Sutra is the key to understand the essence of anything, essence of any art form. So that is the Rasa Sutra, which will be explicated in the next video.